afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Madam and Sirs. Welcome to Athens, Mr. President. Welcome to Delphi Economic Forum. Nice to have you here, especially this year, that we celebrate the ceremony of 200 years since the Greek Revolution in 1821, and you as Slovenia, the 30 years of your independence. I think that the history states that Kapodistrias, our first governor, has his family roots in your country, Slovenia. And also, the city of Koper is also named Kapodistria after him. Exactly. Mr. President.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for invitation on this Delphi Economic Forum. It's very relieving to be here physically. Mm-hmm. I think that being here in person, since I think this is a sign that epidemic is coming to its end. Mm-hmm. So it's something we all wish and we all need. Slovenia is taking rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union on July 1st. Mm-hmm. This year is not very special only for Greece, but also for Slovenia. Because at the same time, we are taking the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. Slovenia is also celebrating 30 years of its statehood. Mm-hmm. So we have many things to celebrate this year, and we hope that we are able to do it freely. So I think that there are some comparisons between this year and the time 200 years ago. 200 years ago, Ljubljana was a center of that time's Europe for a short time, because in Ljubljana at 1821, Congress of Europe was convened. At that time, political leaders, emperors, and others gathered in Ljubljana, and they tried to re-establish the balance of power in that time's Europe. But also this is the year when the Greek War for Independence, Greek Revolution, began. And as such, at this occasion, I would like first to congratulate the Greek nation for its 200-year anniversary of their self-determination. Mm-hmm. Our independence is much younger. We still have a real feel of the times 30 years ago, but nevertheless, I think this is the sacred time in the history of any nation. As you said, Count Ioannis Kapodistrias, who at 1828 became the first governor of Hellenic state, was his family. Mm-hmm. Origin of his family is Koper, Kapodistria. But this is not the only link. He was also present, Kapodistrias was also present exactly 200 years ago at the Congress of Europe in Ljubljana. Mm-hmm. At that time, because he was very well-known, skillful one among the top European diplomats already at that time. Well, in the light of spreading ideas of liberalism and national identity, at that time's concept of Europe was concerned with restoring the balance of power, legitimacy, and management of big power relations. Today's challenges the EU is faced with are no lesser. The European Union has to find new mechanisms for preserving national sovereignty while at the same time enhance its capacity to be strategically autonomous to effectively enforce the European Union interests globally. Without so-called strategical autonomy, it's not possible to be strong and to coordinate your interests with other global powers. Maybe this is a lesson we can also learn from the times from 200 years ago. And I think that this, what I said, is also one of the main purposes of the conference on the future of Europe, which officially started yesterday. And it foremost priority for Slovenian presidency, forthcoming presidency, is to open this debate. To open this debate on the future of Europe, to make different views regarding our future, to be freely expressed and to make the compromises when there are differences, but also to strengthen our European value basis. I think that European Union is actually the process. European Union is still a process. The process how to assure the overwhelming goal of Europe whole and free and in peace, at peace with itself, to be implemented. We still have European countries which are not members of European Union. They want to be, so the enlargement process has to continue. But also we have to develop, to upgrade some existing mechanisms we are using for managing the things which are now the main challenges, I don't say problems, but challenges we face. There is also one priority for the next half a year or for this time. We maybe didn't even imagine it 1 year ago, and this is resilience. Because the COVID-19 epidemic, which affected us at the beginning of last year, well, made some make some vulnerabilities of the European Union more present. So I think that we have learned a lot during last 12 and something months, and I think it's a vast amount of agreement across the Europe that we have to build resilient Europe, to be able to face next possible challenges, as are epidemics. We don't know when next one is coming. We should be prepared. But there are also other challenges where we have to be more prepared. One such is cybersecurity. Imagine if we have the same time pandemic and cyber attacks, and we have countries without electricity, vulnerable, destroyed healthcare systems. It would be even worse than a war. No one single country in Europe has enough capacities to face this challenge alone, but whole Europe, sure. If we cooperate, if we build those capacities together, we are strong enough to confront even the combined challenges. And the next priority we are dealing now with, not only during next half a year, but also during last year, Slovenia is part of trio presidency with Portugal and Germany, is European way of life. So we have to restore the rule of law. the rule of law which is based on equal criteria for all. We have to restore a union of balanced rights and responsibilities, and also we have to strengthen protection of human rights and freedoms, including freedom of expression. Not only freedom of media, but also freedom of expression, because the freedom of expression is a basic for many other freedoms and rights. We also have to have in mind that some of EU member states, Slovenia included, in the past 30 years went through a difficult period of democratic transition. So this year Slovenia is celebrating 30 years of our independence and statehood. Before, for half a century, we are part of a different system, different country, autocratic country. So this transition period is very important for us, and there are many other countries in Central and Eastern Europe which had shared more or less the same or similar destiny. So this is telling us that European Union needs to be aware of this, of those differences. It's different to make some changes or reforms in the countries with 30 years of democratic life and tradition, and countries with 100 years of democratic tradition, despite the challenges between these times and wars and so on. But the length of democratic life and transition has its strategic impact on the things. So this is why sometimes the policy one size fits for all is not adequate. So we have to be a little bit more careful, and sometimes to have more tailored approaches to implement this goal. And finally, we have to generate a secure Europe. We now know that there are other challenges which are very serious, not only the war or some other catastrophes we have faced in the past. There are also things which we can predict, but things we have never experienced before. I already mentioned the cybersecurity, which is a new threat, and there are others. But there are also, when we are speaking about secure Europe, we have to be aware that somewhere around us there are also authoritarian states with some of them, they have revisionist agendas, and those agendas are endangering the values of the Western civilization or the values we wrote in the basis, on the basement of the Lisbon Treaty. We know what has been happening in the Eastern Mediterranean during last period, so we have to be also aware of this. And when we are trying to achieve the goal to achieve the secure Europe, we have to be aware that we are able to do this when we are united, when we fight for each other, when we protect the family. Doesn't matter if the threat is coming from the south, from the east, or from the north. So this is very important. And to conclude, I think that speaking here in Athens, where a large part of European civilization was born during last not only centuries, but millenniums, that our both nations, Slovenia and Greece, are today especially reminded of their respective also of their respective national identities and culture, which is seen and of itself a value. We are all Europeans, but we are Europeans also because we are Greek or Slovenians. And the EU would be well advised to understand this. So, happy anniversary to Greece and to the Greek nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we have new discussions concerning the patents uplifting COVID-19 vaccines. Do you believe that such proposals will give a solution?
Not on short or on middle term. On long term, maybe, but even if tomorrow all pharmaceutical companies which are now producing effective vaccines against COVID-19 are delivering freely the patents, I don't think that vast majority of those countries which are even more in need for those vaccines than European Union countries will be able to produce them. So the solution for short and middle term is to increase the capacities of production of the vaccines. This is the only solution, and this is the problem we are dealing with on the European level. We just had long discussion during the night on Porto Social Summit among the European leaders, and we somehow come to the conclusion that for a short term and the middle term we have to do everything to enhance the production of the vaccines. If those companies who develop the patents for the especially mRNA vaccines are now sharing freely this knowledge, I don't think that Cameroon or Congo or some other countries are able to use those patents and produce the vaccines for themselves. Maybe China is able to do this, maybe India. And we have to deal with this, with those countries which are able to do it. But otherwise, this proposal is not helping in short term. And I think that we have faced this threat also on short and middle term, because after 5 years, I think that we will have enough vaccines for everybody, also to treat or to prevent the new versions of virus.
Mr. President, some top economologists consider the recovery fund to be not sufficient enough for the EU countries, especially after the second and the third pandemic wave. Do you believe that the European Union will grant more funds if it is needed?
Well, if you can get more money, this is always welcome. But the honest answer on this question is we still don't know. We still don't know. If we are optimists, we can make assessment that if this summer is the end of the epidemic in Europe, then the European economy will start to recover very fast. Very fast, also because of all these funds we provided in RRF, and also when we increased the amount of the European budget for next 7 years. But also because we loosened somehow the regulation. So the financial framework or the monetary framework is different than it was during the last financial or economic crisis. So this is optimistic scenario I believe will happen. The pessimistic one is that because the production of the vaccines is so slow, around Europe, new versions of virus will arise. And then we will be catching to the fight with new versions for next year and a half, and trying to be fast enough with new versions of vaccines. And in this case, I think we need another package. In this case, we need another package, and I'm convinced that the European Union will provide it. So the approach we used last year during the summer when we negotiated, the first time in European Union history, also sources from our own resources, from the European resources, which the mechanism unfortunately still has to be ratified in some countries, but I hope that they will do their homework within next few weeks. But the approach we chose was different than during the economic and financial crisis, much better, much more suitable for the threats we faced, and I think we will follow this approach. So if if this summer is not the end of the epidemic, we will have to tackle the consequences also with the new packages.
Do you believe that there would be a way that the EU could approximate common politics toward Turkey's challenges that in turn will ensure the security and stability in the East Mediterranean area?
I hope so. I hope so. We have passed on the European Council good so-called two tracks approach toward Turkey, but this will work only if the bloc is united on this. So far, we are not there. We are not there yet. There are still some differences, as we all know, but we are going in this direction. We are going to this direction, and during next half a year, when Slovenia is sharing greater responsibility for the situation in the European Union, we will do whatever is in our capacities to help to build this consensus, to really act as a family. And I think this is the only sign your neighbor is, or the neighbor of the European Union, Turkey, is understanding. So we all know that when we were united, we were able to make deal with them, and the situation has improved. So this is the key. So actually, in your question, there was also the answer. So this is the only way.
Slovenia was part of the last large wave of EU enlargement back in 2004. How the EU membership affected Slovenia over these years, and how do you position yourself towards future enlargements, especially vis-à-vis the countries of South and East Europe?
Well, if you ask my compatriots in Slovenia if they are satisfied with our EU membership during the last 15 years, almost the same majority which voted in favor. We got referendum to decide the Slovenian membership in the European Union, and the result was 90% or something, so very high. Maybe today the answer is not supported by such overwhelming majority, but still a large majority, because after entering European Union, we also adopted Euro, we entered Schengen area, we have our minorities living in neighboring states. Suddenly there were no barriers. 30 years ago, people were still killed on the border between that time's Yugoslavia or Slovenia and Italy, for instance. And then suddenly there are no borders, we are united. So the real feel of the Europe in Slovenia during this period has, how to say, also changed the attitude of some skeptics we had at that time. On the other side, there were also challenges, economic and financial crisis affected also us, but because we are part of Eurozone, we feel that we are more safe, so at that time. This is also the reason we are open for enlargement, especially for the Western Balkans. This is the region living between Slovenia and Greece. And I think that so far we have been successfully joining forces to help those regions. Slovenia is planning an official summit between European Union and Western Balkan countries in October this year to assess the situation and to make some moves to speed the process. I think that after all this period when nobody has really cared for enlargement in Europe because of economic crisis, migratory crisis, and now epidemic, the time came when we will be focused also on the enlargement.
What do you state, Mr. President, for the upheaval that was caused due to the publication of the non-paper, according to which seems to be one of the priorities when you take over the European presidency, to redesign of the borders or of former Yugoslavia?
Well, for us, this non-paper doesn't exist, so I cannot actually. It would be a waste of time to comment something which doesn't exist, because such papers has been published mostly yearly, in this region, just to boost the debate, to go with the interest on one side or another side. So, and we are out of this. Slovenia is trying to help the region. So to make European perspective of the countries of the Western Balkans a reality, and because we were for decades part of this region as one state, we had lived with those nations together. We maybe a little better understand also the details. This is why we think that we can help with the improvement, but at the same time we also learned from the last 10 years that it has to be a moment. It has to be a political moment when the common approach of 27 member states is possible to make some strategic steps forward. If there is no moment, nobody can make this move. And we sense that maybe this moment is approaching. This is why we propose to have during our presidency also this summit. And this summit won't be about the border changing. It will be about the European perspective for the countries of the Western Balkans.
Will the EU demonstrate a coherent agenda for Western Balkans?
Yeah, well, many proposals are coming from different sides. Some of them also very opposing. But we don't think this is only bad. This means that maybe the moment is coming when we can make some compromises and some progress. And it's time. It's high time.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for having you here.
Thank you.